Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's lesson, CSS Navigation Bars. So we are going to be looking at how to create bars, how to style it, right? So we are going to be looking at the vertical navigation bar, and then we are going to be looking at the horizontal navigation bar. And for all these, we'll be using this base untitled links, and then we're going to style it to actually make it a horizontal or a vertical navigation bar. So basically, it's a list of links, like you can see, right? I said that directed, undirected links, right? Uh, and then either you're using the UL, and then you have the li tags, which is your list element, and within the list element you have the link to your item, right? And then you have the name of the item, right? So this is basically the syntax, and we're going to do the styling in CSS so it looks differently and it displays as a horizontal, or if you want, as a vertical. So this is sample HTML that we are going to be working on. It's just a basic list, right? And then you have your li, your a's, and your the links to your items, right? And then the name of the items you want displayed, right? This is just a basic uh, list, right? I'm using a hash because it's a test environment, and it's just for testing, right? So in a real world, you have to put in the real uh, links, right? So let me refresh this, and as you can see, it comes like a list. You have your uh, list elements in there. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is to style this. First, what do? We would want to remove the bullets from this list, right? Because we don't want to have any bullets. And the padding, we might want to remove it. And then the margin. So we are just trying to make the default look of this list change. So that's what we are going to do. So let's just do it. So in the, and not in the head section, I'm going to create a style. And you can always do your styles in a different sheet. I just want it to be in the same so I don't have to navigate in and out of the sheets. Okay, so for this style, I'm going to target this UL element, and then list style type for those who have forgotten, right? And then it's just to remove the bullets, I can say none, right? And we already went through all of this. So if I refresh this, voila, no more bullets. And then the margins, sorry, the margin, we remove it, right? So, and then we remove the padding. Okay, good. So this we are going to use this basic style that we have just done in both our horizontal and our vertical uh, navigation bars. So just keep that in mind. So the first one that we are going to do is to do the vertical navigation bar. And to do that, we have to style the anchor tag, right? So we already did the UL. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to target your A, which is your anchors, and I'm going to display this as block, right? And then I'm going to add a width, to this, say 60 pixels. Or let's make it a little bigger, say 70 pixels. Okay, and then we're going to add some background color, say some kind of gray. Okay, so if I refresh this, you can see that it is taking shape. So with this, you can see the whole area that we are talking about. You can see that it's not just the links that are clickable, but the area itself. So if I just move my mouse over the area, you can see that it's clickable. Okay. Now, the reason why we use display block was because we wanted to display the links as block elements, so it makes it easier to set a width. And if you wanted to add some margins and some padding, height, etc., if you want, right? So you can only do it with block elements and not inline. By default, it's an inline element, and so you have to change it to a block element so that we can style it differently. And that is why we can actually click the area that you see that we can click not just the link but the area around it because it sees it as a block element and the link affects the whole element. So that is why, right? So with block elements, we know that it takes up the whole width of the space available. So for example, if I just comment this out and then refresh this, you can see that I went all they took up the entire width of the space, and that's why we have to set a width because block elements take up the entire width of space available. Well, another way you can do it is because this anchor tag is within this UL, right? Block, what you can do is you can set the width of the UL and then just comment out this width row, and it's still gonna look the same because it's going to take up the entire width of space available, and the space available is the space or the width that you have set in the UL, right? So that is another way you can go about doing it. So to make this a little bit better, what we are going to do is first, I want us to change to have a background color set for this. Background color set to uh, F1, 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 which is grayish. So as you can see, yeah. And then what I'm gonna do is set a width on this to about, say, 200 pixels. Okay, good. And then, so it's what that means is I can decide not to even have a width here, just so because this is gonna occupy the same space, right? So if I refresh it, it's gonna go all the way to the container, which is the UL. Great. The next thing that I want to do is to add some padding to my anchors. So I'm gonna have padd padding, and I'm going to set 8 pixels, 15 pixels right here. Okay, good. And I don't want any decorations. Okay, none. So if I refresh this, it's beginning to take some shape. Nice. But as you can see, when I hover around, it doesn't change color, which is what I would want it to do. So I'm gonna add, uh, what color do I want the anchor tags to take? Because this is blue and I don't. Okay, let me add a color to this anchor tags because I want to change the text color and I just want to have white. All right, 000. Good. So when I refresh it, oh, that's black. Okay. So it's black, but when I hover, maybe I want it white. Okay, great. So to do the change on hover, we just did that in like the last two lessons. What we can do is we want this anchor, and I'm gonna add the hover to the class. If you remember, you can go and revise. And now I just want the background, and maybe should be small. Okay, what I just want here is I want the background color should be 555, and I want the color, which is the text color, to be white. Okay, great. So let me refresh this. And now when I hover, you can see the background becomes deeper gray, and then the text color changes to white. The next thing that we are going to do is to add an active class to the current link so that if people are browsing, they know which of the page he or she is on, right? So we will be doing that next. So uh, for this first one, this li, this anchor class, I'm going to add a class name, and I'm going to set it to active. Okay, and everything else stays the same. So if I refresh it, nothing, right? So now we are going to change the styling a little bit. So if I have the, so let's create the, right here, I have my li as the a, but I'm looking for the active class, right? I'm going to say change that background color for whichever is the active class. Make it, okay. And what color do I want to choose? Not a double. Let's say for a 60. Okay, some sort of green. Okay, so this is already active, so that's why the color is green, right? Good. So everything else stays the same. And except you want to also make the color of the writing white, right? So that is green, but the font is also white. Good. But we can see that when we hover over it, even with the active class, it also changes to gray, and you might not want to do that. So there's another pseudo class that we can attach to this hover, right? And that is the not, right? So like creating an exception, right? And it takes in a parameter, which is the class that you don't want this to affect. So I'm gonna just say I don't want it to affect the dot active class. So now when I refresh it and I hover, this is not affected. So this is a very good pseudo class to know. So just keep in mind. Next thing is that we would want to add a border, right? Borders to this to make them distinct, right? So for this UL, I'm gonna add a border. Okay, just oops, not another. I don't know why I make these mistakes. Okay, so I'm gonna add a border, which is gonna be 1 pixel, not too thick, solid, and good. That's the color. So when I refresh it, you can see a light gray color around it, right? And then I would want borders in between all of these, right? So for my LIs, I want to be able to add a border to that also. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm not gonna use this one because this is targeting the anchor, right? Your eggs, but I want the whole list element because I want the border to go around this whole thing here, right? So what I am going to do is just target this, just the li, and then the only thing I want to do here is first I want to align the text in the center. So I'm gonna use the text, not test, text align, text align, and I'm saying go and center this in the middle, and then I still want the border, so I'm gonna create a border and say give me a 1 pixel solid. I want the same color, 555. Okay. So now when I refresh this, you can see that the lines seem to have gotten thicker, right? Because it's putting a different layer of borders around this. So just so we can, because if you look at this, it's only the bottom borders that we want. So this is going to have a bottom border, just the bottom one. So we can specify that the border around this li should not just be, but should just be the border bottom. Good. So now, yes, the only thing now is that the bottom, this last list element here has a double border here. So we can, how do we fix this, right? And we can. So the way we do that is to use your pseudo class. So I'm going to say li, and what about this li? I'm going to look at the last element of my list element. All right, so I'm going to use the last child, right? And say that's what I want to target. And I'm going to say border, and it has to be below the li that we just did previously, right? So it is not overwritten. And I'm going to say border bottom because I don't want a border there. And what am I going to do there? Set it to none so it doesn't have it. So when I refresh it again, it does not have it. So now we are getting somewhere with this, right? So what do we want to do? We don't want the height of this to just be this. We want it to be a full height and fixed right to the side, right? So let's do that. So what I'm going to add to this is our height, right? So your UL, which is your entire list here, should have a height, and that is what we are going to add, right? So the first thing that I'm looking here when I look at this is there's this margin that is set here that is not looking good because when you think about navigation, it's always on the, it doesn't have any margin. So we are going to do that. And the way to remove that margin is uh, to just target the body. So what I'm going to do is just target this body and I'm going to set the margin to 0. So good. And when I refresh this, it's right there. Good. So now back to what we are doing here. So the next thing that I want to do here is to set the width to, because I don't want to set a fixed width because when you're using devices, you want it to fit well uh, in whatever device that you're going to use. So I want to set using percentage, right? So I'm gonna change this width that I already set to 200 pixels to just 25%, right? So if I refresh this, it becomes bigger, but yeah, it works. And then I'm gonna make this fixed, right? So I'm gonna say position, and those of you who can remember from the previous lessons will know that it's gonna be a fixed position, so it doesn't move around. Okay, so when I refresh this, you don't see any change, but it's fixed, right? And you might want to set the height, which is going to tell you how long this should be. So I'm going to say height, I want to set it to 100%. Good. And when I refresh it, you can now see that it goes all the way down, right? And you want to have auto overflow set to auto. Okay. So when we refresh this now, we have everything in place. But this is where you might not want to have the the borders right here. So I'm gonna take these borders for now. When I refresh it, when I remove this one and I refresh it, now we have it looking like this, which looks a little bit better. So it depends on how you want to style it. There are certain things that you may want to keep, remove, depending on what you want, right? But let's keep going. So this ends your horizontal border, and it's already 20 minutes into the recording. But I don't want to break this video into two, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do the this is the vertical. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the horizontal in the same video. On second thought, I'm just gonna cut it here. It wasn't a second. I had to pause the video and think about it a whole lot, and then so I'm gonna stop this video right here, and I'll continue in the next lesson. So thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson.